There we go. All right. Everyone see the PowerPoint?
Yep, looks good.
All right. So let's get started with the meeting for tonight. All right. Chris Patron, can you introduce our guest tonight, Dr. Matt Robinson, please?
Happy to. Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm coming from the Chase Fieldhouse where there's kids running around everywhere. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Matt Robinson, who's going to talk to us tonight a little bit. I first heard of Matt, well, I've heard Matt Robinson before, but I saw an article on our U Daily newsletter this summer about Matt and asked JP and Greg, hey, do you think this would be a good addition to one of our winter meetings when the season starts? And they both agreed and said, heck yeah, let's get him in. And so I asked Matt, and he graciously obliged to the request. And so tonight I'm happy to introduce Matt. He is a professor and area head of the sport management program in the Lerner College of Business and Economics at the University of Delaware. He has authored 2 highly successful sport management texts and over 25 articles. In 2008, Robinson, in partnership with the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee and International Olympic Committee's Olympic Solidarity Fund, created the International Coaching Enrichment Certificate Program. And he has worked with over 400 international coaches from 125 countries in 24 different sports, and has personally oversaw the implementation of over 40 sport development projects. Since 2008, Matt has served as the chairman of the Delaware Sports Commission, which was founded for the purpose of attracting regional, national, and international sporting events to the first state for the purpose of economic development. He has spearheaded, this group has also spearheaded the feasibility study for both Delaware Turf in Frederica and Sand Hill Fields in Georgetown. In 2020, Robinson was named to the President's Council on Sport, Fitness, Sports, and Nutrition Science Board for the United States Department of Health and Human Services. And Matt is also the chairman of the annual Slam Dunk to the Beach basketball tournament in Lewis, which attracts some of the nation's most talented teams and players. So without further ado, Matt,
Great.
the floor is yours.
Great. Thanks, Chris.
Matt, I'm going to make you the host so you can go through the slide, okay?
All right, great. Great. I just moved through a couple slides there. All right. Let's see. Can you stop sharing yours, Mike? And then
Yeah, hold on.
I'll call mine up real quick.
Sure. Stop share.
All right, great. Second here. Share screen. And yeah, Chris, again, thanks. Thanks for the opportunity for inviting me tonight. And just trying to think in preparation. I know it's the start of the season for you all, so I thought maybe just kind of go through and briefly move through some slides and get you just a little bit thinking about what you do and how you're doing it. And again, as far as position lacrosse, serving as an official in lacrosse. I'll say at the beginning, and I think, Chris, you said it's a statewide organization. I've been at the University of Delaware 20 years, and a good friend of mine actually had a lot to do with me deciding to come to Delaware, as a gentleman by the name of Bob Schweitzer. So maybe some of the guys who've been around longer remember Bob, but I know Bob was passionate about officiating and loved the sport, and really was a great friend for me and had a lot to do with me being at Delaware, and I have very good memories of him. But as Chris said, I like to think that I bring my perspectives in here that, Chris touched on a few things. But again, over my career, I've been a high school and college athlete, a high school and college coach in the sport of soccer. I was a youth coach, spent probably 15 years coaching my kids across multiple sports. And then, Chris kind of mentioned, and to have worked with national governing bodies, primarily in the area of athlete development, everybody from U.S. soccer to field hockey to speed skating, a little bit of everything. And then, like I said, with the USOC work, but also served as a Division I AD up at Delaware 6 months as the interim AD. And I'm involved with coach development, run coaching education and coaching development programs around the country, again, in the sport of soccer, and then internationally do a lot with basketball, the two sports. And I serve within a position of consultant, sports consultant, and then as Chris mentioned, slam dunk. And, the interesting thing about all those experiences, there's a common theme that runs through all those different opportunities, that the importance and the necessity of officials, are there. So that's kind of my perspective. And I'll be honest with you. I've never been an official. I've never done an officials course. But with that being said, I would say from all my experiences, I value what you guys do. And I think today is really just maybe my goal was to try to get you thinking about what you do, why you do it, and moving forward as the year is about to begin. So that's why I always talk about the why and the how. The question is why you're doing it in the first place and how you're going to do it. And again, I think if you can sit there and just ask yourself that question, why the heck, why am I signing up for this? And then if you have that answer, you're about to embark on what maybe a 4-month, journey through a variety of different levels of officiating, coming across a variety of different stakeholders, a variety of different people to appreciate or don't appreciate what you do. But then it becomes a question of, the degree that you want to do it and do it well, because it's you've signed up to do it. So, in preparation, there's, and trying to think my remarks and getting, just having kind of a reflective exercise with you guys, where, seeing the amount of information out there, articles, and I see them on a daily basis, there's concerns about, the shortage of officials around the country, not just lacrosse, but everywhere. And, this quote really resonated with me, that getting to that heart of the why, and it really, hopefully get you thinking about it, because I know it can get difficult as you're going through the years. I heard somebody mention making a comment about that coach, or there's certain venues you don't want to go to, fans that are going to be there, whatever it may be. But I think just when you see people quitting, especially the one that's so unnerving, is, this idea that you have officials quitting in their first year of doing it. And again, it's interesting. I mentioned this to Chris when we were talking about doing the session. I do a lot of talks with organizations, primarily in soccer, and it's a similar issue on the coaching side, losing those first-year coaches. And again, that word parent comes up, that's the biggest thing, is the expectations of parents that are placed on those coaches. I think your guys are threefold, that now you have expectations of parents, coaches, and players that are there. And so in thinking about today was, again, going back to the why and how is, I think a lot of times we know why we're doing something, we stay committed to it. And we may, it's important to us. And then, like, again, the how, that, well, if we're going to do it, then we might as well do it well and make our commitment to it. So my frame of reference coming into this, guys, is I'd like to think I'm a realist, that I kind of see the way things are as opposed to be the idealist. I don't want to really use the time, nor am I qualified to use the time to talk to you about officiating lacrosse, or coming up with these. We're often accused of this in academia of, coming up with these pie in the sky theories that's going to make the world all better. My frame of reference is, it's as a realist, that the way things are, and the way things are is, I'm sorry, one slide, whoever, it's a challenge. And again, the reality of losing officials, both at the beginning, middle, and end, is a reality. So when I think about this, and this is where I would say my familiarity with lacrosse, and going back to understanding the importance of what you guys do, is, we completed a study in 2020 for the World Lacrosse Federation. And basically, it was kind of a neat study that we did it for the World Lacrosse Federation, based out of Colorado. We did a survey with all the national governing bodies or national federations around the world, in a sense, to do a benchmarking exercise to see where gaps were. Ultimately, what we did, we established it, that we identified countries as established and developing lacrosse nations, and then trying to take a look at the differences between those and where the gaps were, and that meaning, what do the developing nations need to do? And the one that really stuck out is going back to the officials provision and development. That we saw a significant difference between the advanced and the developing nations in regards to development of their officials. And then a recommendation is that, again, this idea of more course offerings and the federations working with one another to train more of the lacrosse officials. And when we met with the board, we did our presentation to the board. Again, most of these are coming from the coaching perspective. You could tell who the officials were when, and then speaking up and so forth. But the coaches appreciating that the game was not going to grow internationally unless the number and the quality of the officiating increased. And it wasn't when you say the quality of the officials, of being critical, but rather saying, doing the appropriate training, having the right mentoring programs put in place, the appreciation that the game cannot grow if those officials aren't there. And so that really resonated with me. And that was I always say when we do a consultancy, okay, what are the action items? What ones can you start yesterday and jump right on them? And it was very universal to say that, that they had to address the officials component of it. And again, the idea of recruiting, training, retaining, developing, that they have officials at the lowest level, as well as also being able to have high quality games in those developing nations. So again, my perspective of coming in here was I have an appreciation for what you do and consider and understand the significance of what you do. Now, with that being said, again, going back to this idea of the why and how, the reality is that what you do is important and it's essential to the growth of the game. And as you guys know, there are those of you that don't understand or appreciate or value what you do. And again, so with that in mind, of that being the reality, let me say this to you guys, that the other reality is you're a bunch of amateurs. Now, I'm glad this is a Zoom call because you may be throwing stuff, going to throw something at me. But when you're thinking about the definition used there of calling you a bunch of amateurs, is a person who's competent or inept at a particular activity. But when I call you guys a bunch of amateurs, I'd rather use this definition. It's someone who does something for the love rather than the money. Don't think any of you guys are going to get rich this year doing this. The word amateur comes from amorte, Latin for love. And when we do for love, we care. We're passionate about it. We're persistent. We don't let outside forces impact it. And when we do it, there's a great, incredible feeling associated with it. And we can lose it if we let those outside factors impact us. So again, going back to it, I just think we bastardized that term amateur in our culture to go back to that first definition. But really, when I see an official, especially at the youth level, the high school levels, again, you guys know that hey, you're not getting rich doing this, that it's something that you have a passion for. And then again, I think when we start talking about defections from it and losing the young coaches, again, it's the outside forces. It's those outside forces that are there, that are challenging us. So going back to my perspectives, in talking about this and moving forward, a couple of things about my perspectives in looking at the officials. And again, remember, I was an athletic director. I signed those checks. I was a coach and I was on the sideline. So at the end of the day, I never realized how hard it was, what you guys do. I think one of the best, and I recommend this when I do coach development, I work with these soccer organizations around the country. I say it's because I had the experience as a college coach. We put on an indoor tournament and, we're using it as a fundraiser for our team. And I had a buddy that was an official, so he said, yeah, I'll come do some games. I'll bring a guy. And then I said, well, look, I'll jump in and do a couple games. We couldn't get the third official. I think we had three, it was a short period where I'll jump into a game. It can't be that hard. And I would say two things about it. And I never was tough on officials. I was brought up in two programs that I was taught to respect officials. But I said to myself, my God, I can't do this. This is really hard. That I thought I was going to be able to jump right in and do this thing. And, that classic was, boy, I blew that call, so I'll make it up later. Next thing you know, I'm like doing reverse calls. I will never say a word to an official the rest of my career. And I talk about this with coaches in clubs all the time is have your coaches, let them go officiate. Let them go see how hard it is. Let them go see what's it about. So I think that whole idea, and in a minute, I'm going to be talking about this idea of partnerships, of the way that we can combat this issue. Because again, the reality is, guys, officials are leaving. We're not having difficulty getting new ones in, and you can accept that, or you can say the reality is, can we change that reality? The second thing is, I didn't realize how much you all cared about what you do, how you work at the game. And when I say the game, your aspect of the game, it's been neat with Slam Dunk is, seeing the officials. And I remember we had one game that after the game going into it, it was a great game, both the teams, the coaches, the officials. It was an amazing basketball game. And I went into the locker room to thank the officials. And I was in there and they knew they had a good game. and they cared about the fact that they did their job well. But on the other side, I could also hear that after the fact, them critiquing it and saying what could have been done different and what, and I love that aspect of it. The other one was, I've been very fortunate. My wife is related to an NBA referee by the name of Joe Crawford. And this whole concept of you guys have a craft, and to be good at it, you work at it. The good ones are consistently working at the game. And I remember having conversations with Joe, about it and just giving the referee's perspective on things I never even thought about at that point. When I did start dating my wife, I'd gotten out of coaching, but to sit with Joe and talk about it. And again, I wish people knew how serious you guys are about what you do and how much you care about it. And then, just like an athlete has a bad game, you have bad games. And just like, an athlete misses a free throw, you make mistakes. And I remember one thing Joe said is, do you miss calls? And he goes, hell yeah. And I go, what do you do about it? He goes, look, man, number one, those athletes, they're moving so damn fast. Yeah, I miss calls. He goes, but the thing you can do is, hey, if you get a chance, you apologize. Because you know what? Those coaches are going to make 5, 10, 15 mistakes during that game. I mean, the athlete's going to miss shots, miss their assignment, all those things. It's a game. They always talk about minimizing the mistakes. So when I go back to it I realize you guys aren't superhumans, but you are humans doing it. I realize that you really care about what you do, and damn, it's hard what you do. So give yourself that credit and have that mindset, like I said, as you guys are heading into that season. Now, some food for thought for you to be thinking about is it's not about what you want, but about being what you do. As I mentioned, you guys have voluntarily chose to do this, in pursuing this. And it's a craft. And like anything, whether you're, making shoes, woodworking, whatever it is, it's a craft and it's something you need to work at. I'd like to think it's, in many cases, something you love to do. I get amazed at that when I see, and again, my interaction with a lot of basketball officials, man, they love what they do. They just, that it's something that you love. And it's, for a lot of you, you have your full-time jobs, you have your other careers, and what an enriching experience for you to go out for an hour and a half and do something that you love and doing it well. And you're really giving something so others can achieve. I mean, think about that the kids that get these scholarships and the kids that go and play on, for, at higher levels and things like that, you're not there, that opportunity is not presented to themselves. So again, it's not about what you want, but what you're, about being what you do. And then being a good official is what you do. And like you said, you have that opportunity to give, allow, offer, and serve. And it's a great opportunity. The other thing is that having a mindset going into the season of not asking for nothing back. Praise, recognition, respect, and pay. Yeah, it's nice. But if you're waiting for it, you're often going to be disappointed. I know there's a great feeling, if a coach comes after you and just says, hey, you called a good game today. And I know, the handshakes from teams, but a sincere handshake or those officials. But man, if you're waiting for that, that's going to be disillusioned. But if you're doing it for yourself, like you said, that why, and you gave it your best, then those other things don't matter. If you get them, they're nice, but it shouldn't be what you're relying upon and why you're doing it. Because like I said, I think you'll be disappointed and disillusioned more so with that. And again, maybe don't take the time to understand what you guys do. And it. You're the first excuse. You're the first excuse. And like I said, going back to that outside sources of, damaging, the losing the officials that, it's a shame when every time I see the article come out about the shortage of officials, and I have people who call me and I try to recruit kids into officiating at the university. And a lot of them it's about the external forces of why they don't want to do it. And again, it's that fact that it's that, that you are that first excuse. And like you said, in a minute, I'm going to be talking about understanding the why of the others. But the other part of it is, thinking about this, and you guys know it, you've had that great game. You called that great game. You've worked at it. You've developed as an official. It was critical. I remember reading a book about, if you guys remember the Duke Kentucky game, the great game up in Philadelphia where, Leitner hit that shot. And I was reading a book about it. And I know the guy that was doing the game. And in the book, it talked about it. At the end of it, when it was all over, the first thing he checked, okay, did he get the shot off? It was the biggest thing. He said it was good. So did he get the shot off? And he went back and he's like, he goes, you couldn't have done anything differently. I know there was questions about one call. He goes, but no, we called the game. And he goes, and there was that level of satisfaction. We were a part of history. So again, he went home that night with that great feeling. And remember this, I love this quote every time I see it. Even after all the time, the sun never says to the earth, you owe me. Guys, like I said, the games aren't being played if you're not out there. You're not going to be appreciated. You're going to be the first blame, all those things. But for you, if you can remember why you're doing it in the first place, why you signed up to do it, the joy you had doing the first game, maybe the first varsity game that you have, and you keep that focus and knowing that all you can do, a lot of times, not going to say it's going to completely eliminate it, make it easier, but hopefully it's going to make it better as far as the negativity that sometimes comes along from those outside forces. Now, I always find interesting too, and I always talk about this when I work with coaches and organizations about getting a triangle together of the coaches, working with the officials. I thought one of the neat things, Joe invited me up. I'm actually friends with Joe I'm related to, but Jay Wright, the coach of Villanova. But Jay would always open up. He'd have a select camp in basketball, and he would bring Joe would bring the officials in to work the camps. And I remember Jay saying to me, he goes, I've learned so much about the officials and understanding what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how hard they worked at it, that he goes, I completely started since I started doing these camps. I'm not the same with the officials that I was before. I respect the heck out of them. And I think that and I don't know, I'm not familiar with the organization, everything you do, but that the more you're talking to coaches, the more the coaches appreciate it, especially the young coaches. And again, having asking organizations to have policies and procedure in place. But I think the other thing with coaching and these organizations is partnering with them for the recruitment of the next generation of officials. Not every kid's going to be a great player. Those kids, and I get angry with sports organizations that are driving kids away from sport just based upon the participation, where we need officials. We need to support people. We need the culture of it. And you're driving kids away that maybe they're not the greatest lacrosse player, but maybe they could be a darn good official. And you want to make sure that they're loving the game and not driving away from that. And I think the other part is the parents. We had a guy with the coaching course, one of the neat videos I saw, he did a program on a parent education program with officials, and it was great. And it was all video. This is pre-pandemic, but the opening of it was him, and he's screaming at this 13-year-old girl. Is the opening of the video for the course, and calling her everything in the book, and then the girl finally turns around, and then he looks at the camera and says, "I'd like to introduce you to my daughter. How would you like that if somebody talked to your daughter that way?" And I was like, whoa, man, did somebody just throw a haymaker there? And I think one of those things is he partnered with the Officials Association in putting that together. And they made it online, it was virtual. And again, just getting to the parents of like, hey, you're part of the problem. You have a role in this, in educating. So I think those types of things, getting to the source of their discontent, and trying to understand them and work with them. And you may not be able to change them, but you're fighting to let that they're not changing you. And again, that going back to that, just hearing the statistics about officials leaving and not being able to get younger kids to come, younger people to come into the sport as an official. So the dealing with the reality is, it's great to see this group together, and they always talk about, you find your tribe and then you rely on your tribe. And again, I think, the idea of mentoring, the experienced officials mentoring the younger ones. I think sometimes we develop the mentoring program on the coaching side, and I think it'd be very applicable for officials. But hey, maybe you don't want to officiate anymore, but maybe you can be a mentor. You've done it for 20 years, and hey, maybe it's time, but you've got incredible experiences that, it is working and trying to keep the officials in the game, with that. I think the other thing that's great when you start talking about retention and all is building the socialization piece in, the support system in place, for those that it becomes something that's enjoyable for them, and staying with that. But again, I think the officials, you guys help one another out, through it. I think it's awesome. As I mentioned before, that communication and cooperation is working with the coaches, and working with organizations to, number one, educate them on officials, help them recruit and develop officials. Because like I said, the sport, and again, it's amazing how fast lacrosse is growing around the country. I think it's, fairly well established here, but you look at other parts of the country, the way it's growing and what's limiting it is, not having the officials. So, so again, this idea of, as this sport continues to grow, is having it. But, coming down to the end, guys, I just, again, Chris asked me to do this. I was thinking about what I wanted to say, and I know I've talked to groups and talking about the retention of coaches. And I think there was a lot of similar themes, because you hear the same thing from young coaches, like, I'm not putting up with that anymore. And it's always that conversation like, hey, well, what can you do? The reality is that the parents are going to be there. Now, that's the reality. Now, how do we deal with the reality? And how do we address it? How do we turn them into a partner? How can we develop ourselves? How can we be having a mindset that, yes, we've got the verbal abuse and all those things that, yeah, it's not pleasant, but it's not going to affect you to the point that you end up quitting something that you truly love. So again, guys, I wish everybody all the best as far as the coming year is concerned. And like I said, I've never put on the stripes as an official. I know Schweitzer tried to recruit me a couple times, and it just, as I started doing traveling with my work, and I'm like, Bob, I just don't have the schedule to do it. Plus I was running around coaching my kids, but I know I appreciate for everything you do. And again, the sport wouldn't be where it is today, in the state of Delaware, if it wasn't for, your guys' work. So I just want to wish you all the best with the upcoming season. And Chris, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. That was fantastic. Kind of just the inspiration we need at the beginning of the season here. If anybody in the crowd has questions, you can go ahead and type them in the chat, or just unmute yourself and ask. And I'll get things started. I know we have a lot of other business to deal with, but Matt, so you've coached all over the place, all kinds of different sports. What's the best officials experience you've ever had as a coach, and why was it so good? You talked about running, directing, slam dunk and all this other thing. You've talked to these refs, but in your coaching experience, you've had these games where you're like, wow, that official was fantastic. What was the one thing that they did that made it a fantastic experience?
Well, that's a great question. I just think that I think of two games as a coach, and it's that ultimate saying that the official managed the game that you didn't know they were there, and I think I saw that as a coach, and then I saw it at Slam Dunk. And we have this, I don't know if anybody's a Slam Dunk fan or whatever, but it goes back to, you have the Cam Reddish kid that's in the NBA now, and it was Gray's Academy against Westtown. And I don't even know if the officials blew their whistles, and it wasn't because they weren't working. It was just the tone of the game that was set. And I mean, at the end of the game, it was just one of those moments. I was like, I've done this for 30 years. I'm almost not even a sports fan anymore because it's my work. And I remember finally sitting down saying, I'm watching this. And it was a combination, was because I remember there was questions about, hey, are the officiating going to be good enough, things like that. And these guys just managed the game. But I think it was such a neat thing. And it was kind of funny what I did. The game was great, and I thought the officials were great. And I went back in the locker room, and the three of them were in there. And I came in, I just yelled. And I was like, hey. And the three of them just turned and looked at me. And I said, that was amazing. And it was, I just had this group hug with the three officials that did that game. And to this day, I see them, whenever I see them. And it was just that you were as responsible for that as the players were, and the coaches. And it just was that was a neat thing. That was a neat night. So that's the one that sticks out for me.
Nice. Thank you very much. Any other questions from the crew? All right. Well, hearing none, again, thank you, Matt, for your time. I appreciate you putting the work into this and talking with us tonight. Sunday night's always it's kind of a slow time, get ready for the week and that kind of thing, but we greatly appreciate it. And hopefully the messages that you put out will ring in our heads throughout the season this year.
And I'll just say this, Chris. Hey, I'm an amateur too. I mean, Chris asked me to do it. Anytime that when I see people that are passionate about what they want to do, it gives me an opportunity to share, and hopefully there's one thing you guys can take that maybe inspired you, use or whatever, then it was worth the time. So love being around passionate people that do things for the right reason. So really enjoyed it. Chris, thanks for to me, man.
Hey,
Absolutely.
Matt,
Thank you, Matt.
Matt, this is JP. I took over for Doc Schweitzer. Are you ready to put on the stripes now, or you ready to give up coaching? Or because coaching is the dark side. Whenever you're ready to join us, you let me know. Chris has my number.
Okay. All right. My wife tries to keep me home as much as possible. So yeah, maybe I'll take you up on that there. Even though
Fair enough. Chris has my number whenever you're ready. Thanks for joining us, bud.
All right, man. Cheers, guys.
Great. Thanks, Matt.
Yep. Thank you, Matt.
Mike, the meeting's yours.
All right. Let me share screen. Make sure it's sharing again. And all right. Everyone see our screen here? PowerPoint. All right. So let's just start with general business. Dean, take it away.
The balance in the account as of today, 5,381.50. I do have all the rule books, and we'll have them Sunday. I have a few 5-year shirts I need to hand out. So hopefully, see me at the Chase Center. And if you owe dues, actually, I finally got a Venmo. It's Dean-Daniker if you want to pay that way, or you can always send a check or bring it, next Sunday. If you're not sure, send me a text or an email, and I'll, look at your statement from last year to see if you paid it or not. So that's it.
All right. JP.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. I'm just looking through the list to make sure, obviously, hopefully everyone's getting my emails. You're noticing they're getting a little angrier and angrier every time. I can honestly say, looking through the list, that everybody that's on this call, you are not my problem children. Open and honest. I don't think anybody on this list. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Nobody that is on this call right now has been a problem for me. But if you saw the last email, yes, 25% of the original emails were turned back, declined. And I've explained this to a couple of my problem children, that I do understand that I started the assigning process very early, and some of them may not, and some of you may not have gotten your blocks in, and some of you may have turned back games. But again, not directed directly at anybody on this call right now, but I need your help. You got your first round of assignments. I still have at least 200 games to assign. Please get your blocks in. Please, if you are available and you have the legs and you can do it, I know, and I agree with what Gordon said at our last meeting, you don't want to work every day of the week. And if I have you working every day of the week and you can't, it's just too much. I completely understand that. But if you have availability, I need all hands on deck this year, because we just don't have the officials anymore. We are hurting. I am struggling to get games covered right now. And I will be honest with you, there is a very good chance, no matter whether it is the first week of the middle school season or the last week of the middle school season, if you have a middle school game and you are a veteran official, and by veteran, I mean you have 4 or more years of experience, you will probably be doing that game alone. There are Tuesdays and Thursdays where I have 29 games at 17 different sites, and 7 of those might be middle school games. So I'm pleading with you to please get your blocks in. If you can't work, I completely understand that. It's just, I need help. I need officials, I need help. So anything you can do to help me. Greg's message is going to be very, very angry, what he's putting out there. And I think he's going to send that out in an email. So again, anyone on this call, let me just check, make sure Mike didn't let anybody new in. Again, no one on this call is a problem for me. If you turned back a game and you're on this call, you had a good reason, you had a valid reason. But like I said, going forward, please get your blocks in, help me out. That's all I got.
Greg actually put a video on this PowerPoint, so I'm gonna play that. It's closer to the end.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I've seen the video, and again, if you're on this call, it is a very impassioned video. So do not take it personally. If you turned back 2 or 3 games, he is not talking to you. There are other officials that I have that have turned back entire schedules, even after we talked about their blocks and things that they should have done. And it's more than just a handful, which is the problem. So just help me out. That's all I'm saying. But Greg still wants the video to be played. So any questions about assigning before we move on? All right, go ahead, Mike. We're good to go.
All right, Mike Wilbur, it's your turn.
Okay, we'll get assignments made made within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So when you start your season, you'll have a mentor to call, talk to, run some questions by. Anyone that's over 3 years or more, if you want a mentor, please send me an email and we'll get someone assigned to you. That's it.
All right, and then all I have, guys, for youth lacrosse, Greg touched on it just a little bit. It's mainly just going to be on Saturdays. There might be a few things during the week, but then talking about like very few. 76ers Fieldhouse is not doing their youth club this year, or their youth season that they used to do during the week last year. So it's just going to be Saturdays. So if you're available and you're not working for JP, I probably can definitely use you. But like I said, you're not going to hurt my feelings, especially if you're working for JP already. I'm going to get the games covered the best I can. Some people might be by themselves, like JP saying, like for middle school down the road. But we'll get there when we get there. But if you haven't told me you're interested in youth in the previous years and you're newer, just let me know. But that's all I have on that. Any questions about that?
I got one more thing, Mike. I'm sure you saw the emails. I know a lot of you have already contacted me, but April 13th is a Sunday. No, March 13th. March 13th is a Sunday. Right now, there are 12 fields from 8 until 3 o'clock down at the DE turf. It could be 12 fields from 8 until 5:30 down at the DE turf. So I need officials. If you're available, please send me an email with the subject line March 13th that you're available. And then April 2nd and 3rd. April 2nd is not a very heavy day for us on the high school side. So if you have some availability, send me an email with that too. And then April 3rd is a Sunday. That is a much smaller tournament. Open and honest, I will be a little more selective with that one. It is a very, very high level tournament. They are looking for, they wanted all college officials, but that's not possible. I just can't do that. And I do want to open it up to our association. So it will be a little more selective, but everybody still has the opportunity for that. So if you have availability April 2nd and 3rd, let me know.
All right. So let's move on. All right. Meetings and training. Members are expected to attend all meetings and training sessions. By the bylaws, just remember you're required to attend at least 3 of the meetings to remain in good standing. Online meetings, Greg will post those prior to the meeting. All meetings will be recorded, so if you want to go back or you miss a meeting and you want to look to see what you missed, you can test out to get credit for that meeting. I think Fu was going to work on that, at least for the last meeting. I'm not sure about this meeting. Remember, field training is mandatory. That is going to be next Sunday at 1 o'clock at Chase Fieldhouse. So just make sure you guys attend that.
That's a 76ers field, right? Chase Fieldhouse?
Yes.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. Uniforms, just remember Kevin Hawkins is the uniform supplier for DEA. So if you're looking for something, remember we all have to be dressed the same. That's gonna be part of our pregame talks, what we're gonna wear for that day. You can see the uniform checklist on the website. And that's about it. Just remember, we're still doing the 1-inch stripes this year. I know Greg mentioned about doing the 2-inch stripes next year, but that's next year. That's not this year at all. Remember, the long pants have to be all black, no stripes or lettering. Logos are minimal or grayed out. Can be wind pants or athletic pants, but no sweatpants, guys. And shorts, remember, they have to be all black. Same thing with the pants. Remember, you probably can get a good pair of Coles for like $15 if you really need a pair. That are cheaper. Hats, remember, it's the good old black with white piping. Remember, the undershirt's black, shoes are all black, socks all black, above the ankle. And just as a reminder, this is what we can wear for the during game: short and short, short pants, long sleeve, or long and long. Remember, it's not short sleeve and pants. It's not basketball and not Foot Locker. Like I said, 2-inch stripes for 2023. And Greg is gonna get something together to order some in a bulk for everybody. But I'll have talks about that later. And the summer uniform is going to be the gray shirt, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And it is one of those is going to be an association gift.
Mike, about if anybody needs, if any new officials need 1-inch stripes, because we're going to 2-inch stripes, that uniform depository, with that said, that's what we're looking for. If you have old 1-inch stripes that you're willing to lend to a newer official, contact Greg, let him know about it, so that our newer officials don't have to go out and spend $38 on a shirt for one season, because next year we're going to 2-inch stripes.
Yeah. All right. Greg and wanted to make sure everyone was informed. The DLOA store will be open this week. The link will be sent by Arbiter sometime during this week by Greg. Paid members will get a $15 coupon to purchase a gray summer shirt as their association gift. So just make sure you have that when you make your order. I think Greg told me it's gonna be like the black undershirts like we did before, the hoodie, the gray summer shirt if you want more than just the one. And he said there's gonna be a few other things, so check that out if you would like some. He said the store will be, when it opens, it'll be open for a max of 10 days. Probably closer to a week. So when you see that email, don't wait too long, because if you wait like 2 weeks, the store may not be open. If you're interested in a black hat with the Doc logo on it, or the summer hat that we use, or the DLOA jacket, go to this form here. I'm sure Greg will send it out too. It's not an obligation to buy it. Greg just wants to know how much interest we have, if it'd be worth to purchase one thing or two things or all three, for everybody. But just make sure you do that sooner rather than later, just because we are doing this later than we usually do. We want to make sure everyone has their stuff for the season. And here's the link for it. So scroll down. How many hats would you want? How are you interested in? What the cost is, and then just submit it and just make sure. And like you said, it's not really any names on here. I'm sure he's gonna put on for email. I think mine just automatically popped up. But that's what that looks like. Just make sure you fill that out for Greg. That way he can figure out what he needs to do.
The link is in the chat.
Yes. All right, it's loading back up. No, I want to presenter view. No, don't want presenter view. What is this thing doing? I'm losing my mind, JP. There we go. All right. Dragonfly. Guys, make sure you complete all the tasks for DLOA and DIA by 3/7. If you're looking for the test and it's not appearing for you, it's because you haven't paid your NFHS and DIA dues. Make sure you guys do that. pay your dues. The test will pop up. That way you guys can take it. If you weren't at the clinic, please go to this link and view the clinic and take the tests. If you look up DIA sports and go under boys lacrosse, you can find it. It may take a week or so before the clinic is marked as done. I think I took it week and a half ago. It's still not on there, but Greg is going to make sure he talks with Stephanie, Mark, and Donna Polk and make sure everyone's getting marked off that it does the quiz.
Those links will be out. Greg will send out an email this week, like you said. And also, Tom, I don't know if you just, Tom Reynolds, I don't know if you just saw the message put up there. Yes, the reversible jackets are still good. If your partner's wearing stripes and doesn't want to wear a jacket, yeah, you can still wear the striped jacket.
All right, and here is Greg's message about signing. And like JP said, I'm playing it just because Greg wants it played, but like JP said, this really isn't pertaining to anyone here, but just
It doesn't pertain to anyone in the meeting tonight, Sunday, the 20th. If you're watching this at home because you're not in the meeting, this could pertain to you if you're watching the recording.
yes. All right, here we go.
Hey, everybody. Sorry I couldn't be in the meeting tonight. I'm sure Mike's running it phenomenally. If you have any questions, please give me a shout. I did want to address a signing real quick. In reading JP's email,
Mike, did you lose the sound?
Yeah, I can't hear anything.
Yeah, I lost volume here. Yep.
You guys aren't hearing it at all.
Heard it for the first couple seconds.
I heard
Try
the first
again.
sentence or two, and then it cut out. Yep.
Try again, see what happens. If not, then we'll
Right.
just.
hey, everybody. Sorry I couldn't be in the meeting tonight. I'm sure Mike's running it phenomenally. If you have any questions, please give me a shout. I did want to address a signing real quick. In reading JP's email the other day, that 25% of all the assignments he's made have been turned back or have been left dormant and not accepted within the allotted amount of time is ridiculous. There's no reason to be turning back that many assignments, period. JP has always been very flexible with everybody and worked with you on your availability and your assignments. I can only imagine that the reason we're getting 25% turn back is that many officials have not properly set their availability in the arbiter, which we've had sessions to help you with that. We've talked about that over and over again. Or you're sitting there cherry picking games, waiting for just the right game. Regardless of the reason, that level of turnbacks is unacceptable, period. We can't have that. It's not fair to JP. He works too hard to put the assignments together, put the crews together, and make sure we're doing a good job assigning for our clients in the DIAA. And to have to go back and redo all that work over and over and over again cannot be allowed to fly any longer. Please set your blocks. Please accept your games. JP works hard to make sure everybody gets a good mix of games, both very competitive, varsity, JV, middle school, whatever it is. He mixes it all up, and the expectations everybody does their fair share. Do not cherry pick your games and turn back games just because you think they're beneath you or you do not want to do those games. Accept your games if you're available and work the games. If you have questions, JP is always willing to work with you. If JP cannot answer your questions, you can always call me. Thank you. I will see you guys on Sunday at the Chase Fieldhouse.
All right. Does someone say anything? I'm assuming everyone heard everything.
Yeah, that was fine that time. Yep.
I don't know what happened the first time. All right, so we have dealing with difficult people with Fu. Fu, I'm gonna give you control. That way you can share your screen and you take it away.
Can you just, I sent you that presentation. Can you just do it? Can you just open that up? Might be easier.
Way to start dealing with difficult people, someone that
Yeah,
can't do
is
his own
food the
presentation.
difficult person in this scenario, or is he?
I think I am I am being the difficult person in this scenario. Oh,
Like
Google
if you open in
Slides.
Google Slides, yeah, it'll work. Just click on open with Google. You should just be able to click on open with Google Slides. Create a new copy. Slideshow. Nope, not that. Yeah, right there.
Oh, thanks, Michael. All right, everyone. I will try to keep this short and sweet. We basically wanted to kind of do a broad overview of how to deal with troublesome coaches, problem players during the game. Hopefully better equip you with an approach that can lead you to have an easier season. I know one of the worst things for me starting out was having an awful game where the coaches were yelling at you the whole time, both sides. Players were being disrespectful. Fans were giving it to you from the stands. That's an easy way to have a bad game, even if you didn't actually have a bad game. So this is just kind of a broad overview on what we're supposed to do and how we can approach that. So if you can go on to the first slide there, Michael. So the first thing, obviously, is that we're held to a higher standard. It would be nice if we could say some of the things that fans say to us. It would be nice if we could say some of the things that coaches and players say to us. Unfortunately, that's not the world that we live in. So this is just a little excerpt from the DIAA. We must exercise a higher level of self-discipline, independence, and responsibility. The field is a classroom. And we officials just have to maintain our ethics regardless of what's going on around us. And that's one of the first things that I want everyone to kind of keep in mind there. If we want to move on to the next one. So one of the first things that we can do is can happen in the pregame certification, which is our first meeting with the coaches 20 minutes before game time. You're meeting preferably with the home coach first. It's important to introduce yourself, introduce your crew. It's a chance to humanize yourself. A lot of times we're viewed as the enemy, either by players or coaches or especially fans. But this is a chance to kind of be seen in a human light, be friendly, be personable, but maintain your professionalism. And I think it's important to build these relationships. A lot of these coaches at the high school level are there for years, hopefully years and years and years. And you can start building that relationship early on. It definitely will pay dividends down the road as far as being respectful and being able to approach them, having them approach you in a decent way. We move on to the next one, Michael. So in-game interactions, our big thing is to remain calm. We have to, again, be at a higher standard than they are. They're going to be emotional. They've got a lot invested into it. I know our presenter said it, these guys, they love what they do, most likely. Hopefully they're not there just for the paycheck. And so when you put that much time and effort and sweat into it, you know, it means a lot to you. And we kind of keep that in the back of our heads, just like it means a lot to us, all the hard work that we put in, that, you know, sometimes they're going to get emotional. They're going to wear their emotions on their sleeve, and they might say some things that they don't necessarily mean, but we have to remain calm above all that. Do not ignore questions. And that's important because there are a lot of times that you can ignore statements. That was a terrible call, under their breath, you know, that kind of thing. What we don't want to do is ignore honest questions. And this is probably one of the biggest things that I've found over the last few years of officiating personally, is that I come from a bartending background where, you know, I deal with people at their worst. They're drunk, they're stupid, they say dumb things. And for me, when I was first starting out officiating, the easiest thing for me was just to ignore everything. Anything the coaches said, I would just kind of ignore. Anything fans, players, for the most part, I just kind of let it roll off and keep running down the field. What I've learned over the last few years is you're most likely creating a bigger problem down the line. That person is just building and building and building that anger, and they have nowhere to throw it at if you're just ignoring them. Again, statements are one thing. Honest questions. Hey, did you not see a push there? Those are things that we should not ignore. It shouldn't be at the sake of watching the game. You're not gonna hang back and have a 3-minute conversation with a coach while the play is still going on the other side of the field. But at the next dead ball, you know, be honest. Say, you know, hey, I didn't have a good look at it, coach, but I'll ask my partner what they saw, and we'll get back to you, and then get back to them. I know Gordon touched on that a week or two ago as well, but I think it's important to acknowledge what they're saying, as long as it's respectful, as long as it's a question. I think it's important to acknowledge what they're saying and give them an answer at some point when you have the time. Never throw your team under the bus, and that is important. Just because someone got the call wrong on the other side of the field does not mean that we start throwing them under the bus when you're on the coach's side. It's not going to help anybody in the long run. It might make you look like the good guy for 30 seconds, but at the end of the day, we succeed as a team and we fail as a team, as a crew, and so that's important. JP has a question.
Yeah, I just want to add here for those of you that were at the clinic, this is what I was getting at, and this was directed at the coaches. You've all seen what's going on in the world today. College officiating, professional officiating, even the Olympics, everybody's coming down on the officials. It's all the officials' fault. So Fu touched on it. He said, ignore those comments under their breath. That was a horrible call. You missed that one. That's fine. But once any coach, any player gets personal and you're horrible, you suck, you shouldn't be here, I'm calling JP, you'll never work here again. We cannot let those things go. We're not going to let them go this year. We have to stop that mentality. The majority of the coaches in Delaware are very good. And yes, I do have a very good relationship with most of them. I played with most of them. I grew up with a lot of them. They are going to call me, but that doesn't mean you're not going to go back there. But once it gets personal, and I don't care if it's a coach, you know, Fu plays with a lot of these guys. I don't care if it's, you know, his best friend that he used to bartend with. If he gets personal with Fu this year, we can't let that happen, especially if it's loud enough that his players are standing next to him and they hear it, because they're going to do what they hear their coach do. With what's going on, and you can't open Facebook without seeing another official attacked or chased or something. So we have to stop that immediately this year. As soon as it gets personal and the coach personally goes after you, a player personally says something, we're gonna penalize them for that. But like Fu said, if it's, you know, that was a horrible call, you missed that one, we're going to let some of those things go. But if it's loud enough and he is personally saying you suck, you're horrible, and especially, you know, profanity, as soon as they start cussing, we're going to take them.
Yeah, so that's actually on the next slide, Michael, if we could go. All right, so crossing the line, like JP just said, making it personal is the biggest one. That's the number one thing. And I don't think we have to touch on that anymore. He gave a pretty good explanation, but questioning integrity.
Sorry, Fu, I didn't read ahead, sorry.
No worries. Questioning integrity is the next big one. You know, whether the old how much did they pay you before the game, challenging your authority, challenging your judgment, obviously any foul or inappropriate language. And like JP said, this includes, you know, something that may seem somewhat harmless in a quiet one-on-one conversation. If he's yelling it as loud as he can so that everyone around can hear, and if the stands are behind him, you know, that kind of stuff is contagious. If you nip it in the butt right away, maybe that dad that's 3 rows behind the coach doesn't go ballistic, you know, in the third quarter when he doesn't think you made a good call. So again, you know, if we nip in the butt early, anything that's crossing the line, anything that's personal, a personal attack, even if it's at your partner that's across the field, you need to address that if you're the one who hears it. Questioning integrity, challenging authority, judgment, foul, inappropriate language. We don't necessarily need to answer every statement. You know, if he's, like I said, if he mutters, you know, well, that's just terrible under his breath. If he, look, if we start penalizing and addressing every single statement like that, that's all we're going to be doing all day long, especially at some of these some of these locations and teams. How to deal with it? We're going to work them up the ladder, right? That's always been our mechanic. Verbal warning. Hey, coach, that's it. I've had enough. You know, we're going to agree to disagree. That's not how I saw it. We're going to move on. Hopefully that's enough. And for a lot of these coaches, that's fine, especially again, if you've had that open dialogue, if you've been answering questions, usually once you get to that stern warning, that's enough. If not, we go to conduct fouls. One important note that Greg wanted to throw in here too is that conduct fouls should never be called for a player-to-player interaction. That's going to move straight to unsportsmanlike. If it's something that warrants you getting involved and getting in the middle of a player talking trash to another player, if it warrants enough for you to get involved at all, it's going to be an unsportsmanlike conduct. A player-to-player interaction will never be a conduct foul. Conduct fouls are more reserved. It's a tool for us to use to when that verbal warning on a coach didn't work. A conduct foul is an excellent tool, especially if they have the ball. To give a conduct foul and take away the ball and go the other way is usually enough. And hopefully you're not influencing the game in a huge way, which is not our fault, obviously, if the coach warranted it. But it's just a nice tool before we move up the ladder to the unsportsmanlike conduct. Unsportsmanlike conducts, everyone's aware. We start at 1 minute. They're always locked in. It's full time. So that gets pretty serious. And then the last thing here is just to remain calm, be mindful of your tone and the way that you're explaining things. The last thing you want to do is escalate the situation. Chances are there's already one guy who's pissed off and red in the face and screaming and being rude. We never want to make that 2 people in that situation because that's not going to help anybody. I've found that sometimes remaining calm might even piss the other guy off even more, but at least we're covering our bases. Maintain that professionalism, maintain that calmness. It's unfortunately that's the world we live in. And with the amount of video and cell phone clips and everything else that's going around, you just don't want to be put in a situation where that's going to come back to bite you. That's pretty much all I had. I don't know if Mr. Hernandez or JP had anything else to throw in there. But that's kind of the broad overview that I want. I just wanted to stress again, you know, like I said, the biggest tool that I've learned over the last few years is the actual communication. Don't just smirk and run down the field. Don't laugh. Don't just sit there and laugh with your partners about it. You know, answer the question. If it's an honest question, if he genuinely wants an answer, I think it helps a lot in the long run if we remember that, they work hard too. They're emotionally invested as well. And sometimes they genuinely want an answer to the question. Just remember that communication is important. And that's all I had, guys.
All right, and I mean that's pretty much all we have. Greg, like you said, just a reminder: on-field training, Chase Fieldhouse, 1 o'clock Sunday, the 27th.
Hold on, Mike,
Sorry.
I got one.
Okay.
Chuck just said he to talk about assistant coaches, and that's a good point. Assistant coaches, depending on the team, can be your best friend or your worst enemy. Regardless of the team, I'm going to try and get the assistant coach on my side right away. The assistant coach is going to run the box most of the time because the head coach is going to be yelling what he wants, where he wants players, but the assistant coach is the one that should be running the box. And I don't want to say in the good programs, in every program, the assistant coach should be the one running the box. So you want that coach on your side. So if you have time before the game, find out which one's going to be running the box. Talk to him. Hey, during the game, do me a favor, keep the box clear, keep your head coach off the field. That way, when a controversial call does happen or a call that he doesn't like, he's not going to automatically be yelling at you. Yes, at one time it was, we never want to talk to assistant coaches. And if it gets to that point in the game, you turn around and you say, Coach, I'm not going to listen to him anymore. I'm only going to talk to you. You've always got that. You can always turn around to the head coach and say, Coach, you need to control your assistants. I'm not talking to them anymore. I'm only going to listen to you. And most assistant coaches in Delaware will understand that. But the more we get them on our side, the easier it's going to be. At the same time, you don't want them questioning every single call. So it does infuriate an assistant, even though they are supposed to be seen and not heard. It does infuriate an assistant coach even more when they're ignored, because they know they're not the head coach. So I'm running down the field. Head coach doesn't have a question because maybe he didn't see what happened, or maybe he's the offensive coach and the assistant coach is the defensive coach. He asks a question. I'm going to answer his question. I'm not going to turn around and say, Coach, you're the assistant coach. I'm not talking to you. Once he starts to elevate and scream and holler at me, then I'm going to say, Coach, I'll talk to your head coach, not to you. You have to figure that out as the game progresses. It really does come down to who's running the box, who's the offensive coach, who's the defensive coach. But some of these schools you're going to go to and there's only one coach. So you have to balance it. Yes, assistant coaches should be seen and not heard. However, you could be setting yourself up for even more yelling if you ignore the assistant coach completely. And it takes a lot to figure that out. It takes time. It takes games. It takes that ability to develop game management. If it's going to keep that assistant coach out of my ear to make a joke with him or to let him know, yeah, I'm going to listen to you, then I'm going to get him on my side. I'm not going to ignore him completely until he starts screaming, are you crazy? How'd you miss that? Then I'm going to turn around and say, Coach, that's enough. I've heard enough. I'm only talking to your head coach for now on. You're an assistant. I'm not going to listen to it. And you just handle it that way. I hope that answers your question, Chuck. George, for the on-field training, Greg will send something out about that. But usually when we do it, it is stripes and shorts or pants. There's no teams there, so we don't need to look exactly alike. But I think Greg does want us in stripes and black shorts or pants. But he'll send something out about that also.
All right, guys. Any other questions?
I mean, I think that for the attendance factor, I just need the two phone numbers, I believe. The one is Mr. Fullhard.
Yes.
And it is, do we know who the 804 number is?
804, hold on.
Can you hear me, Phil?
Yeah, yep.
Now that you've identified me as a unindicted co-conspirator, I would just add one thing. I do football, and in almost 50 years, the best football official that I know of was a guy who, when a coach was upset and wanted to talk and vent, he stood there and put his hands behind his back. And it is the most disarming physical movement I think I've found in all those years. And he was the best at it. And he just stood there, listened to the coach with his hands behind his back. And then you can be as stringent as you want after that. But that is a very non-threatening posture. End of comment.
Very nice. That is very good advice as well.
All right, everybody. Just keep an eye out for information on field and on the DLOA store if you are interested. So.
Oh, I do have to say another comment. I think we had to replay the Greg's video simply because Mike wanted to hear, and I'm sure Mike's doing this just terribly well. So.
He had a great looking haircut, by the way.
It might have been
Greg's
well
haircut
done,
was great.
I think stupendously was the word, and that is where it cut out, actually, the first time.
Mike, you did a great job.
I try. Thank you, everybody. All
Thanks,
right, well,
everyone.
everyone have a good night.
Put that background back up, Mike. We need to screenshot that and save it for.
Yeah, JP says he's gonna pull my schedule. I ain't doing that.
We're gonna blow that up for the banquet for you,
Oh yeah,
for the wall, for your wall.
it's fine by me.
All right. Good night, guys.
Have a good night.